Welcome back, Geoff Coughlin. As you can see, we've applied the duraluminum and that's all gone on rather well, which I'm pleased about. And now all we need to do is give the surface, the metallic surfaces, a quick polish using some of this Micromesh 12,000 grade cloth, which is grand. It's grand because it's extremely smooth. It won't damage the surface if you work it quite firmly. And all that's required is just to go over those metallic surfaces with a bit of a rub here, just to remove any excess pigment. And the other beauty is it will leave them really, really smooth, ready for a bit of further paint, some of the mottling that's got to go on, and then of course some of the Azure blue underneath has also got to go on, and then we can do a bit of masking and all that kind of stuff. So I'll take you through that in just a few moments. So there we go, just work those surfaces just like that. And in a few seconds or a few moments, that's done. So there we go. We're now good. I think to apply some of the hairspray, which we were going to use and are going to use for some of the chipping to create some of this metallic stuff to come through here. So we'll get on and deal with that next, and then you can see how we go with that. So now we're getting ready to apply our hairspray, which is just one of these weathering techniques that you can use. People often say, well, what sort of hairspray do you use? Well, this is one that I do use. It's one you can imagine, well, it's one I borrow, to be fair. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. So I borrow this from time to time when it's required. You know, I'm not doing heavy weathering or heavy chipping a lot. Generally, in my world, most of my weathering is reasonably restrained, but this time it's going to be just a little bit more heavier, given the nature of the aircraft, the field of operations that it was in, sort of desert, Sidi Barani, Egypt, 41, all that kind of stuff. I imagine it's going to be much more dusty and weathery. So that's why we're going for this technique on this occasion. So the issue now is okay, so how do I use the hairspray? Well, you've got two options. You could very quickly just give a quick blast along the leading edges and the areas that you want. As always with these things, with cans, I'm never a great fan of doing that, not least of which you've got virtually no control over it. It's very much a case of misting it on, all the rest of it, and often you just can't apply it precisely where you want it. So I think it's better to decant it and spray it. And I noticed Jamie was doing that in his demonstration at Telford this year, which was also useful. So if you saw that in the flesh, then good for you. So what we need to do then is decant it. So I've given this a really good shake, and now what we need to do is decant some of this into a little container so we can transfer it to the airbrush. So I've got one of these little paint mixing cups, and I've got a pipette and a little technique that I use. You may have seen this before when we did this for decanting the primer. It's just snip off the end, and then that helps to create a useful sort of channel, I guess, for the hairspray to spray into this little end here, and then down the tube and let it drip out from this end into the cup. That's the plan, and that's what we're going to do just now. So we just get this thing kind of set up and lined up before we give it a few squirts. And then when you're ready, you can give it a few squirts. Nice. Not being somebody used to using hairspray myself, not a great need, as you've probably seen if you've noticed me or seen me in the flesh. But we move that out to the side there, a few taps, and there we go. There we've got our propellant's gone, and we've just got a nice bit of hairspray in there, which we can decant and use straight into our airbrush, which is what we're going to do now. So out with the airbrush. Still good, I think, to go with about the same pressure, about 17 psi is fine by me. So you notice that just when you pour it in, you just get some of that propellant that starts to fizz out. Well, that's fine. I think it's useful just to give that a few seconds to clear, and then we'll be good to spray it. Just give it a few taps, I find, just helps to kind of invigorate it enough to go on. Okay, there's just a tiny bit of bubbling left there now, not much. You could probably just spray that straight away, to be honest, but I just like to get rid of the last few bubbles there. Okay, that's virtually all gone. And then, again, useful to do this in a reasonably well ventilated area, to be honest, or if you've got an extractor fan, all the better again. And then you just spray it along the edge. And then over the other metallic areas that might take a bit of chipping. Like the other leading edge. The front of that intake, all cooler. On the top, wing roots. They're very common, aren't they, for picking up chipping. Sides of the cockpit. Leading edge of that wing. Just a little bit more required there. Around that gun bay. Okay. And that, as they say, is about that really. Oh, I know what bit I missed there, just on the undercarriage doors. I would imagine these must have picked up some chipping. I've seen some on one or two of the pictures that I've been able to find. So useful to stick some hairspray on there for sure. There's going to get some Azure blue on, and that's going to, I think, going to look quite nice with a little bit of chipping on. Okay, and there we go. So we'll just get rid of that. You can always store a bit of this in one of those little jam jars if you want. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly go and clean up that airbrush in just a second, but just before we do that, what I think is really useful is to just dry it with a hairdryer. Speeds up the whole process. Okay, so we'll leave that now, and literally just as long as it takes me to clean up the airbrush, and I'll use that. We'll start with some water, start with some isopropyl alcohol is normally enough, I think, to clean that out. So I'll get on, finish that, and then we'll come straight back, then I'll let you know how long it's been, which will only be a few moments. So now what I'm looking to do is to apply the Azure blue to the undersides, and as you can see here we've got this wavy demarcation line along the back edge of the silver, the aluminium, and the same on the upper wing here. So I just want to try and create some simple masks for that. It's just the easiest thing I think to do, and one of the quickest things, because I want to kind of get on with the chipping. I don't want to leave it too long before we start to do that process. And here's a great bit of kit. Don't know if you've seen this. This is Gyro Cutter. I came across this at one of the shows, I think, and just picked it up. And what a good bit of kit this is. So basically what you've got is just a neat little handle, and you've got a swivel-headed blade on the end here, which you can see. just see that there. It's a lovely little blade there, very sharp, so be careful. And I just lay down a bit of masking tape on the bench, as you can see here, and then all I'm looking to do, just to run down the middle of that, is to just create a gentle sort of wave. Okay, so let's have a look at that first attempt, and we'll with that for this, and we'll see. Okay, not bad. That's about it, really. As simple as that. So it's very much just a case of give it a go, see if you're happy with that, and if you are, happy days. If you're not, then do another one. So it's simple as that, really. So all I'm looking to do here for the moment, we'll just do the underside, because as I said, we can just want to kind of get on and show you what we're about here. So looking at how that goes, it kind of runs down to about here. I'll just fit this along. Bit fiddly, but you just want to get the line right to kind of kick off the run. That's kind of what I'm after, really. There you go, something like that. To be honest, no, not too happy with that. Quite want it. So you can see you can mask that hairspray. That's not a problem. Just want that a little bit further back. It's a little bit more aluminium showing there than I had thought. Yeah, that's better. Happier with that. Okay, so that's fine. That's kind of one. You can just apply the second one on this side. Oh. Get it around the right way would help, wouldn't it? Here we go. And the other side. Broadly get them lined up, so I think, so they kind of look half sensible, as if they were meant to be done at the same time. Yeah. That's not bad at all, I think. So that's about kind of what I'm looking for there. All right. There we go. My plan was not to do much chipping at the back here end here, so I'm going to not worry too much about that for the moment. So I'm just going to leave that. So the idea here is to apply, I'm just going to apply the Azure blue in kind of two parts really. Firstly, just the main wing here, just so I can show you how the approach works. And then we'll unmask this once I've done the chipping, and then respray, or not respray, but add the further bit of Azure blue at the back end there underneath the tail planes and the underside of the fuselage. But just to give you an idea of how we go with this. So the next thing is just to mix up some Humbrol acrylic, Azure blue 157, it is in the range, and we can get that applied to the model. Okay, so we've got our Azure blue prepped up now, so we'll just get that loaded into the airbrush. Exactly the same as before, 50-50 mix, about 50% thinner to paint, and then we can just spray it on. Yeah, that's one. So they're going on nice and smoothly. And then just along, yeah, I might just do a bit of touching up later on, but don't worry about that. For the moment, just gonna get this on to show you the technique really more than anything. See any Azure blue that's just popped into that undercarriage bay? To be honest, I could have masked that off, but I thought to just kind of get on with it, and with a bit of care it's not too bad, and then we just get a tiny bit of touching up later, that's all. Gently build that up, you get some nice depth to the colour, to be honest. It's great, I love the colour, don't you? Okay, so we'll just clean up the airbrush, so I'll get to deal with that. But before we do that, back out with the hairdryer again. And a good chance to speed up this this process. Okay, so just as that's drying, you can probably see that there's a little bit of kind of blotchiness in different places. To be honest, that's for me, that's intentional, because what I want to do is begin to create this kind of variation in the tone, so it's not all kind of deadpan, exactly the same tone of Azure blue. So slightly heavier, slightly lighter in different areas of the airbrush is absolutely good by me for this. So we'll leave that now just for a few more minutes. I'll go and clean the airbrush, we'll come back and we'll start the chipping. So we have removed the masking tape, just move that out of the way, as you can see here, and we're ready to start chipping some of the blue areas to allow the aluminium to show through. Nice wavy demarcation line from that masking tape, so that's kind of worked well. I've got 3 brushes that I use for this. These are all old brushes, usually flat ones that I've cut back down and I use for all sorts of things like dry brushing and the like, but also really good for doing this hairspray technique. So I just picking one of those, and this is probably not a bad one. Oops, all we do is get plenty of water, which is I've put into another one of these little cups here, get it onto our brush and just pop it down onto the surface that you want to chip. So here I'm just going to work around the undercarriage bay doors, undercarriage bays, and probably the doors as well. So plenty of water on the surface here, and just work it. And all that's happening is that the water starts to penetrate the matte paint and go through to the aluminium and start the chipping process. So you just keep working it. Takes a few moments for that to start, and then it starts to go. Well, there you go, you can just see that happening there along that front edge. You can see it just happening here. I don't want to go mad, I just want to create a bit of, bear in mind it's only 48 scale, but a sort of bit of chipping to just tie the two in together really. I think that's how I would describe it. The aluminium and the blue. So just keep working the surface until you think you've created a bit of an effect, and then you can down tools, have a look, see what it looks like, and kind of take a view on whether you need to do more or less. Well, not less, but just do more really. Okay, so there you go. You get, hopefully you can begin to get an idea here. So what we've got is got some good subtle chipping all along that front edge here. Just picked up the edges of the surfaces that I think would chip in reality. Here against this slightly more raised reinforcing plate, it looks like there's a bit more heavy chipping there, and as we go down the surface of the leading edge, you can see there. So for me, I'm not going to do a huge amount more. So I'm going to do a little bit more, perhaps a little bit more out here, but holding it up to the light, you can probably just about see that chipping coming through a bit more. I think for me, as I said, less is more, definitely. So I'd rather build it up and then come back and perhaps do a little bit more in fewer places if need be. But for the moment, I'm just going to do a little bit more, try and do a little bit around here, perhaps. As I said, I would just try and do a little bit around the intake, the air cooling intake here, and then we can kind of go from there. So just that, in fact, that started to go quite quickly. Did you see that? Just a bit of water on there. A little bit of working with the brush, and that lip is just highlighted enough. So if we just dry that off, hopefully you can just see that. Oh, hold that in the middle there. Just about see that. So that's it. You know, I don't want to go kind of completely mad. So I'll just do a little bit more around here, and then spray the rest of the blue, and then we're good. And then exactly the same thing will happen is I'll start to spray the mottling on the front edges and around the front cowl here. And again, we can do the same thing. You can leave that because all the time the hair spray is drying. So if you want more extreme effects, then you probably need to get on and start to keep these processes going. So spray the camo colors and then get working, you know, in real time almost. If you want something much more subtle than that, then I wouldn't worry too much. You can probably give it a day or so, you know, before you kind of need to have done what you're going to do with it. So it's all kind of good really in that sense. You just play with it, have fun with the technique, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. But I think for me that's the beginnings of quite a nice weathering approach, because there's all sorts of washes and other bits of pastel staining that we can put on here afterwards to kind of finish this area off. But as a kind of baseline for the chipping, then I think this hairspray technique's got quite a lot to offer, to be honest.